common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Let's go to General Keith Kellogg, who was former national security advisor in the Trump administration. General Kellogg, we're so happy to have you here. You know, first off, your thoughts about all these crazy protesters that are protesting at the Democratic National Convention. That we just saw a report not that long ago. The CIA director was saying they absolutely believe that Iran is behind a lot of these, funding a lot of these protests.
Yeah, I think what we ought to do is round them all up, put them in a stadium, and give them civics lessons. I mean, I really get the feeling sometimes they really don't understand the United States of America. They don't understand, our republic, and they don't understand anything that they've got a right, which they do under the First Amendment, a right to protest. But I just think they've got everything really, really wrong. And then I'd probably give them a course on World War II, which talks about our greatest generation in Europe fought to free Europe from its tyranny and what the Nazis did with the Jewish community. I mean, you just look at it and you shake your heads. I honestly, Rita, sometimes I believe it's a failure of middle grade education to forget what we taught Americans, what America's all about. Yeah. But that's just me on my rant.
No, by the way, I agree. I hate it. And when I see them burning the American flag, it's shameful. This week we're going to hear, of course, Kamala Harris talk about, we'll see if she talks about her foreign policy. Biden tonight is speaking. He may talk about some of his achievements. When you look at it, and the world looks like it's on fire. I mean, we got everything going on with Israel, of course, and Hamas. We got Russia, Ukraine. You got the Afghanistan withdrawal. That was a mess. What do you think of what he's going to be able to tout, and what's your reaction? I mean, did he create a lot of the mess?
Well, of course he created it. So did Harris. She was part of it. To start with, though, I think it's a little bit unfortunate. So you've got a president of the United States speaking on the undercard, which is Monday night. Generally, Monday nights are not that big in a convention. You really start winding it up on Wednesday and Thursday. And they've kind of shut him aside. And they did. And it was basically, it basically was a coup. The fact is, you've got somebody who's now a vice presidential, who's a vice president, is now going to be a presidential candidate that received absolutely zero votes from America. 14 million people voted. She didn't get a single one. She didn't get a single delegate, and now they've anointed her to be a candidate. I think Americans, when you talk about, liberty and basically the removal of liberty here in the United States, it's ought to start with the Democratic Party from what they're doing right now with her break. Saying that, I think what you're looking at, especially in the Middle East, and Joe Biden has helped create this here, it's unfortunate that we're in our 10th month in Israel when the war against Hamas there in Gaza and actually the region as well. There's no ceasefire. There's no release of 5 Americans that have been held hostage for 10 months.
Yeah, and they're not screaming about it. They're not even talking about it either, General Kellogg. I mean, that's the other thing. They're not. It's like, we've got 5 Americans. Let's pray they're alive, and obviously many Israelis and others, and you don't really hear about it. Go ahead, Peter King.
Yeah, General, just to switch gears for a moment, do you think the Ukraine offensive is going to be positive in the end?
Yeah, I do. The reason I do is because they've really moved into what's called maneuver warfare against attrition warfare. And if anything, what they've done, I think in the big scheme of things, what they've done is now they've got territory in Russia that they can bargain with. And that's all this is going to turn out to be, is a bargaining tool. But I admire their boldness in what they did. They attacked in an area that was not well defended. They took a lot of territory. The symbolism there is amazing to me. Kursk was the turning point of World War II in the Eastern Theater with the Nazis and the Russians. And the big battle of Kursk, where the Russians actually started going on the offensive against the Germans, that sort of thing, that this attack is happening in that very region, the very place. I think what they've done is very smart. Now they can defend in depth. It's causes some problems for Putin. But I think here's what I really do believe. There's an underpinning to this. Both sides are tired of fighting. It's been 3 years. Casualties are enormous on both sides, and I think both sides are trying to figure a way to get out of this thing. And so I think this is it's a prelude to, I think, eventually peace negotiations where, okay, I've got some of your land, I'll give your land back, you give me my land back. That's kind of where we're heading to.
Judge Weinberg.
Good to talk to you again, General. Let me ask you a question. What's this obsession with the Biden administration trying to force down Israel's throat, a ceasefire, when they're saying that border on, what do you call it, Philadelphia, next to Egypt, where that was the sole source of supply of those weapons. They all were coming in through there. How could they have a ceasefire and let that stay in place, giving them free access to that, and let them rearm again? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think, Judge, I don't think Netanyahu's going to fall into this trap at all. I think that's what I'm talking about. You don't see much happening in the ceasefire because I said about the 5 Americans, they haven't talked reconstruction, they haven't talked rebuilding, they haven't talked governance at all with who's going to follow after Hamas. And I think what you're seeing is this is just another ploy that it'll fall apart over time. And I think, again, this goes back to sort of like what happened in Ukraine. Both sides are going to get kind of tired of this. They've been fighting for 10 months. Somebody's going to have to figure it out. The trouble is that the Biden administration's got no cachet. You've got Secretary Blinken who's made his 9th trip to the region to try to get a ceasefire. And the Israelis are not going to back off, and they shouldn't. This is a moral issue to them. And I think we should have been behind them all the way. I think it would have helped if we had been, without question, foursquare behind them, that we haven't been, and saying, we support Israel, full stop. And we kind of try to play both sides, and then it works out well. But again, there's no plan. I mean, you look at Biden, no plan. And this is Harris's now, too. And she's actually played into it where, she keeps saying she's always been the last one in the room that's talked to the president. Well, Vice President Harris, you own this right now, because now you're going to be the president's nominee. And okay, how do you handle Hamas? How do you handle Hezbollah? How do you handle Iran? How do you handle Saudi Arabia? How do you handle Ukraine? How do you handle all these problems? And the press, honestly, Judge, is letting her run from that.
Yeah.
And it's a mistake. Let's find out where she stands.
I agree. And General Kellogg, I mean, it's like she's dodging away from the media. She's not even doing a sit-down interview. She's not doing a press conference. And you talk about how's she going to handle Hamas if she won't even handle the Washington press corps, which seems to still be giving her a honeymoon? It's really kind of scary, I think, in so many ways, because these are huge issues and there's a lot of bad actors, as you know all too well. General Keith Kellogg, we love you. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, General.
Thanks, Rita. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.